We are curious to know what we shall think and say about Manuel Camus. A year from now, after he has handed the gavel over to his successor, we trust that he has a keen mind. His fine statesmanship, his rich experience, and his determination will enable him to carry on successfully. Judge Manuel Camus Y. Roxas, or Manuel Roxas Camus, was born on October 16, year 1875 in Manila. He was 14 years younger than Dr. Jose P. Rizal. Despite their age difference, the two men were friends. It was Camus who convinced Rizal to stay out of the Philippines when he was in danger of being arrested, because of what he wrote, the El Filibusterismo. Camus put himself into a self-imposed exile in Singapore. He returned to the Philippines after the Spanish-American War, when the Philippines were turned over to the United States from Spain. He worked initially as an interpreter of the Provost Marshal General. Camus would later begin working in government. First, he worked as the city attorney for Manila. Later, he would be appointed to the judiciary. He served as a judge for 2 decades. In his time as a judge, he was known for being fair and impartial in his decisions. In 1928, Camus was elected to the Philippine Senate. He served there until 1931. Again, his high level of integrity was recognized by all who worked with him. At a time when many used their position in the politics of the Philippines to enrich themselves, Camus resisted such temptations. After leaving the Senate, he went into a private legal practice. Outside of the professional arena, Camus took an interest in the youth of the Philippines. He was one of the founding fathers of the Boy Scouts of the Philippines, the YMCA of the Philippines, and got involved in the Masonic Hospital for Crippled Children. On January 1, 1938, the inauguration of the Boy Scouts of the Philippines was held in front of the Legislative Building in Manila, with Ezequiel Villacorta taking over as Chief Scout Executive, equivalent to the position of today's Secretary General. Joseph Emil H. Stibnat served as the first president of the BSP, with George B. Vargas as first vice president, Carlos P. Romulo as second vice president, General Vicente Lim as treasurer, and of course Judge Manuel R. Camus as National Scout Commissioner. At the end of the World War II, the first BSP Chief Scout Executive at that time, Mr. Ezequiel Villacorta, approved Eagle Scout on December 21, 1945 for Cesar Javier. Cesar waited 4 years for his Eagle Court of Honor. Distinguished guests on his Court of Honor was Judge Manuel R. Camus, Chief Scout and President of the re-established Boy Scouts of the Philippines, and Mr. Paul V. McNutt, the last U.S. High. Camus was also a member of York Rite, Scottish Rite, and was Shriner affiliated with the Nile Temple in Seattle, Washington. Camus has a long and complex association with the Masonic fraternity. He started his Masonic journey while in Singapore. He was raised in Zetland in the East Lodge number 508. The lodge operated under the United Grand Lodge of England. Records indicate that he was demitted from Zetland Lodge a year later. Presumably, when he returned to the Philippines, it is unclear what his status in the fraternity was for the next 2 years in the Philippines. He did sign a petition to create Manila Lodge number 342 in 1901 under the Grand Lodge of California. From there, he demitted from Manila Lodge, and on the same day, petitioned the Grand Lodge of Scotland to form Perla de Oriente Lodge number 1034 in 1930. He then demitted from that lodge in 1916 when he helped form Cosmos Lodge number 8 under the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. Camus served as the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of the Philippines in 1934. When Camus passed away on December 22, 1949, those who knew him felt that this illustrious son of the Philippines had left a shining example of what a civil servant and a Mason should be. A humble person whose ambition is the welfare of humanity. Yes, he will be remembered for what he has said and done, especially for this statement. Forward was the watchword of creation, and forward has been the word of success ever since. As is natural, we have had our difficulties to overcome and may have more obstacles facing us. But as long as we are united and justice is on our side, never fear, for victory will be ours.